But today is kind of like I got all serious, and I was telling Todd Karen, who sort of gave us this space and allowed us to come to this space. There's Karen, and she's from the Resiliency Center. When is that open? Or?
August 1st.
August 1st, Resiliency Center.
I'm not 100% starting some open houses. We're working at with that building.
So if I, Terry, just real quick, it'll be August 1st. Cindy and Scott. Scott's still out building a fire, so he's very happy. But for the markers, if you wanted to do one of the things we're going to do, how'd you like that T-shirt? Pretty good? It's incredible, isn't it? Thank you, and the Terry Style and Joe from OCTV, the Resiliency Center. So there was a lot of support, and I thank you for that. So the poem that I thought was really good, and I think I'll probably end up explaining a little bit. I think it's very evident what it is. It says, nobody heard him, the dead man, but still he lay moaning. I was much further out than you thought, and not waving, but drowning. Poor chap, he always loved larking, and now he's dead. It must have been too cold for him. His heart gave way, they said. Oh, no, 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 it was always too cold. Still the dead one lay moaning. I was much too far out all of my life, and not waving, but drowning. And I think that just sets what I see going on. How many of you were impacted when Uvalde happened? Did it just hit you? I couldn't even attend my morning meeting. I have a morning meeting, and I just told her I couldn't even talk. It just affected me. And I know about regular death things with hospice. I know about that. I mean, I do this for a living. People die. And, you know, it sucks, but it's the natural order. Getting shot and murdered is not normal. It's a shock to the senses, and it does all this kind of stuff. It's like a suicide. If you've ever had anybody commit suicide, it's a shock. It's not right. And there's all this stuff that goes on in our head. And then we do the thing that Bella, and not only Bella, but Abby and Olivia and Raina and every other kid, this is the thing that drives them nuts. So how are you today? You know that tone?
Yeah.
It was like the Geico commercial. I can't believe this is happening to me. You know, the nice car? And then there's a tree falling on. It's like, I can't believe this is happening to me. It's the difference between, hey, how you doing? How you doing? Like we're a project, like we're a science experiment. I don't know what it is. We all mean well, but it's nuts. And did you ever notice how all the fun gets sucked out of the room? Now there's a time where there probably shouldn't be a lot of fun, but if cancer patients could wish that they could laugh more, sometimes we wish life could just get back to normal, at least some sense of normal. And that's where the grieving process gets short-circuited, because we as adults really want, I'm just using an example because you're making eye contact. That's your fault. I'll make eye contact with you because we go back so far. But I see you hurting, and I sort of, when I hear you, and I ask how you're doing, and you say, okay, I'm like, oh, thank God. Or, how you doing? And you don't want to be talked to like that. And it sort of just sets up this thing, because I want you to be okay. I unintentionally send signals that say it's really more comfortable for me if you're okay. And then what happens? We feel like we don't have anybody to talk to. This happens if you have the death of a loved one, if you have somebody who commits suicide, murder. I'll tell you what bothers me still. I got a lot of pastor friends. Nobody reached out to me in the shooting. Nobody asked how I was doing. That bothered me. Uvalde bothered me. It bothers me that my friend Bella says she's okay sometimes, and I know she wants to be okay, but there's stuff, right? And it's okay. And we messed up as adults. You're coming in with this wonderful gift of pets, you know, dogs. These dogs. I mean, you don't see therapy cats. I don't know. I know. I didn't mean to say it. But you come in, and so you just by proxy enter into sorrow. So what I wanted to do today, and I found some poems. I don't have my glasses anymore, so I'll probably have to give them to you to read. I have glasses. I don't have $100. Oh, still though. But I just wanted to read some, and then I want Susan. You guys are gonna. They go to Baylor, and where are you gonna go? Where are you gonna go? Oh, so you can get into Baylor? Is that what it was?
I want to go to Texas.
Yeah, nobody does. It's actually work release for them. But I just wanted to give us all, as students or people who've gone through mourning, I want us to come up with better responses too. You know what I heard when I said, I'm so sorry you went through that? You know what I heard? The most common response from people that were at the shooting was, it's okay. It's not okay. One young lady, she's just talking about how she couldn't stand the dark. She couldn't stand even if the light was on and the window was open, because she was freaking out about that. She was hypervigilant. She was doing all the things, and she just was really freaked out because she wasn't comfortable sleeping anywhere. She wasn't doing anything like that. And so I went and talked to a trauma specialist. How many times do you think you're going to say that? I'm going to talk to a trauma specialist. She goes, oh, it makes sense when she said, she goes, no, her brain is functioning the way it's supposed to. She's not broken. What happened to her was wrong. She's not wrong. Your brain is designed to protect you. And I went up to her and said, hey, I just want to tell you, I just talked to a trauma specialist, and everything you're doing is normal. You're not broken. What happened to you is wrong. You're not wrong. And she just fell into my arms to thank me. We're all affected somehow, right? And I said it wasn't going to take long before Oxford wasn't front page. I didn't know it was going to be that short. I didn't know it was going to be less than 72 hours before something else happened. And now we've all picked sides. We all got our issues. And most of it is because we didn't do anything as a community to grieve. Here are the seeds for the community to grieve. You have no idea. You said you wanted to change the world, right? You still do, don't you? This is one of the ways this is going to happen. Because you're going to help us. We're going to help each other with some stuff, okay? Some of this I am going to call on you, though, okay? Because I'm vicariously affected, right? You're directly affected. You're directly affected. So, we'll go forward. Is that okay? And you're still working on make sure it opens on August 1st. I just wanted to let everybody know. Oh, I know. So, what's that?
I said come in at any time.
Yeah, okay.
Like you're sitting at camp.
That's right. So, what, and this, some people, but really, Bella, what's your least appreciated question that people ask you? What's the one that bothers you the most? Do you have one?
Not off the top of my head right now.
One of the ones that I did talk to some students is they really don't know what to say when somebody says, how are you doing? They don't know what to say. Right? And I don't know, how many of you asked that question? You just want to know, how are you doing? Right? Yeah. It's annoying, isn't it? And we mean well, but there's got to be better questions. So what would be a better question? I know in hospice, one of the better questions for me that I would ask is, because how we do is different day to day. That's just our regular life when nothing's going on, right? You have good days, you have bad days. You have great days, you have horrible days, right? So my question was always, how are you today? But there's tone too. How are you today? So I'm going to help see too. One of the challenges I think is jump in anytime if I'm saying heresy, okay? Just be polite about it. It's my show. I'll start. One of the things that bothers me is when we think we have to be okay. I hear it all the time at my work. I got to be strong for my mom. I got to be strong for my dad. I got to be strong for my kids. And nobody's being honest. Nobody, you know. You just got ratted out for grandma. But you've done that, right? You got to be strong for my friends. You got to be whatever it is. Like, I talked to some students and they said, go to the school and the teachers are like, I'm here for you if you need to talk or whatever. They went through the same thing. I would have said, I won't say what I would say. I will say it I'll say it appropriately. Are any of you screwed up by this? Because I'm a mess. Now I've become more relatable, don't I? But if I act like nothing happened to me and I'm going to help you, then I think that's disingenuous. And we don't mean to do it, but we think there's a role. The stuff I was going to talk about wasn't helpful. Because it's, how are you today? That's rude. I don't want to be rude. So, do we feel like we've been forgotten? Yeah. Do you feel that way? Parents do probably. See, because here's what happens. We treat grieving and loss in America, we have a very generous policy that you get 3 days. And it stings for you if it's over the weekend. Oh, your mother died? Okay, can you be back Thursday? Oh, your wife died? Can you get somebody to cover your shift before you go? I mean, we don't handle death very well. That might be a slight exaggeration, but it makes the point. And did you know, just in grieving, in general, right? So the date of death to the fun year anniversary is your first year of birth. Anniversaries, birthdays, holidays, the day that just reminds you of your loved one. There are days, there are things. So there won't be just an anniversary of the shooting. There will be other things, right? That are going to remind us. There are going to be those things. And those things are anniversaries. It's all part of the process. Some people get through it right away. Some people take forever. Right? There's all different kinds of grief. There's all different kinds of stages. Sometimes I can remember almost all the faces of the people that I was with when they died. Sometimes it bothers me more than others. Right? Part of what I do, but I have people I talk to and talk with. There's a part when we're okay being forgotten, because then I don't have to deal with it. I don't have to talk about it. TC Central building with Kevin Hart and Dwayne Johnson, The Rock. He was a fat, overweight kid, The Rock, and now he's this beast. And he said, "How did you do it?" He goes, "Oh, I just took all those bad feelings, I put them in a tight little ball, and I just laid it down inside." And Kevin Hart goes, "No, that's wrong." But we can end up doing that. Because sometimes, look at the suicide, we can feel complicit in it. How many of you had somebody that committed suicide in your life? Okay? And some of us have probably said, because hindsight, lousy, very clear. Hindsight bias and focus on things, because now we know the outcome, so we don't put that filter over it. But we say, oh, if I should have called them and I didn't. If only I had done this. And the hard part is to say you think you can control somebody. But it's an actual very real feeling that we got to help each other through. Does that make sense? Somebody commits suicide and you're like, oh, I lost touch with them 35 years ago and I should have stayed in touch. And if I could just be real bold, one guy said this because it was my first suicide. I was going to do a funeral for him. And he said, you're stripping them of their ability to make decisions. You're treating them like you can control them. You strip them of their dignity, of their choice. I think it was a stupid choice. It's a stupid choice, but might be an oversimplification. I'm good at that. But there's also a thing called moral injuries, moral trauma. And that's, we think we should have done something, or we did something that we think was responsible, or we did. It's a lot of times in war, not just PTSD, but we did something that just wounds you morally. Killing somebody, doing whatever. It's a complicated thing, this trauma. That's why we have people and experts at the Resiliency Center, because this isn't something that goes away. So we might not be comfortable, we might not like being put on the spot, which I'll stop just because I like you and I want to see you jump sometime if you horse. You got a big horse, by the way. Coach is like, I don't know, probably his head is right about even with the wall, I think. He looks like one of the horses in front of P.F. Chang's. That's how big he is, right? It's pretty close. I think it's pretty close. Maybe a slight exaggeration when you see the horse and go, holy crap, I'll have the fried rice, thank you. So, I'll start with the adults. What's your biggest frustration? What's your biggest frustration as an adult, as a grandparent, if somebody went through that, or just how things are going on? What's your biggest frustration?
I think mine is that a lot of them say that they just want to get over it. They just want to forget anything ever happened. Yeah.
They just want to forget and just move on.
Right.
Like it didn't happen. So we do that by numbing out, right? We do that by a whole bunch of things and not dealing with it. Now here's what I know about grief. There's no shortcut through grief. You have to go through the whole journey. Whatever it is. So you got to feel the feels. Right? Because if you've ever watched somebody grieve, I've got a friend right now, his wife died about 7 months ago. And he's like, he just can't stand it. And so about once a week I spend an hour and a half with him on the phone, reminding him that this is part of the process. He's seeing people, counselor, he's doing all this stuff. He just is sick and tired of hurting. And you can want to run away from it. It's like we're going on a bear hunt. Oh no, mountain, you can't go over it. You know, we can't go around it, we can't go through it. Yeah, it's a great book. I don't know, we gotta go over it, whatever, right? So you had your hand on, young lady.
Reading a book study looking and just not knowing what to do to be helpful.
Feeling powerless to be helpful. How many of you have ever had somebody lost, kind of lost? Okay. Right? Somebody died. And you went and you put all this pressure on them. You didn't know you were putting pressure on them. It sounded helpful. And you said, if you need anything, let me know. Sounds helpful, but it puts a tremendous amount of pressure because where do they know how to act? Julia Dreyfus, the actress, Seinfeld, she had said, she talked about when she had cancer diagnosis, they said, what do you need? Or if you need anything, call me. She said it was just a big pressure. She goes, I didn't know what to ask for. Lasagna? You know, I don't know what, you know. So we can feel powerless, and we'll talk about that. And so hold on to that question. I'd love to meet you afterwards. Okay, it's my part. Okay. Yes.
But I observed as a grandfather, and I see how the board meetings, people talking, etc. It was the frustration part of having the students up there speaking their minds. But what I guess summarize is that the school board already seemed to have their minds made up, regardless of what they were trying to tell them. And who knew better as far as what was going on, or what is going to make me feel safer, able to go back to school, and have the kids speak their minds. But when they did, you heard or you read the meeting summary afterwards, and anything that they said, basically ignored.
One of the frustrations that as a grandparent is to be at the board meeting and basically not listening to the experts, the people that were there, the students, on what would be helpful or what they thought would be helpful. There wasn't a discussion. Pretty accurate? Yeah. Did I summarize that well enough? So, how many of you know what it's like not to be listened to? Okay. How many of you love this phrase? Just calm down. That's the quickest way to get me to go from 0 to 60. Is to tell me to calm down. I'll calm down. You guys know what I'm talking about? Yeah. So watching somebody you love not be listened to.
Watching my daughter speak her mind. And basically it was, okay, thank you. Let's put the summary she got.
Yeah, and sometimes board meetings, like they will say, like in a village meeting, public comment is not a time for interaction with the board. It's a time for public interaction. I know I would like more, and that's changing now. If you read the article in Leader, the school board is setting up a website, and they will be sharing information as it comes available, and there will be no more information gaps. There will be transparency, and I believe, I know many of the board members, I know what they've gone through, but I also know that they're going to do their dead level best to help us to have dialogue and to interact and answer questions. That's something that they know they needed to do for various reasons. Didn't happen. Very frustrating. Am I speaking any heresy so far? Are we doing okay? Okay, then I'll stop now before we get to the heresy part. No. So, what are some ideas? How many of you have, if somebody's gone through tragedy, you just found something that worked? Like, well, my wife, powerless to do. What could we, anybody got any ideas? What has been helpful? What you've experienced that's been helpful? You don't have to have answers, it's just something you're trying. Not all at once, I can't hear you all at once.
Would be helpful. Kids need to know something is going to be done. See, us as adults, paper and look at the news and everything. But when I go to our doctor to tell and everybody's saying, you know, how are you? Or, you know, we go back to school, everything's going to be happening. And I sent them a little text today, tell her to be. I know she wouldn't. But I think it's, what it is, these kids don't understand, as parents, we're going to take care of them. I mean, one way or the other, we're going to. Like I told her, when our kids were little, they fell off the bike, kissed put a Band-Aid, there's that. Us as parents and grandparents, we get hard to do something about it. Whether the school board or whoever else is not telling these children. I mean, myself, if I had to place armed guards around that whole school, my granddaughter will be again.
Yes.
She will be. So we need to show these kids that something is going to be done. And quit asking them how they are. And quit telling them they're going to be absolutely fine. Because it's a bullshit to them.
Yeah.
I told you I shouldn't talk.
Did she just say bullshit? That's what I want to know. Okay. That's unacceptable.
But they gotta understand too, the parents are hurting too. The parents are just going to work and sending these kids to school and saying, oh well, so be whatever. Grandparents and parents, every time they go to work and that child of theirs is in that school, they're a mess. I know my own daughter and son-in-law, they're a mess when they're sending her to school.
Oh, you just got ratted out by mom.
So
the
tell these kids what we're going to do. Show them what we're going to do.
okay.
Do something.
Well, I think you bring some good points up. Now, in my military career, I was okay with confrontation. In much of my life, I'm okay with confrontation. I find it harder in certain situations. But at work, as a chaplain, I've just developed a little thing that I do that I try to tell everybody. Remind me about can't and won't. Do you remind me about that? You say can't and won't, and I'll remember. I'll probably remember now because I made a big deal out of it. So, one of the things I have to do is I say, what, obviously you're upset, or I have offended you, or what would you like to talk to me about? And I listen. And then I give them some feedback, and I say, it sounds like I really hurt your feelings. And I'm sorry for that. What, this is what I hear, whatever. We go through the conversation, I say, do you believe that I have heard you and understood what you're saying? And they'll say yes or no, and say, what have I missed? What do I need a better understanding? Then I will say, what can I do that will assure you action will be taken? And if it's something I can do, I will do it. If it's something I can't do, I say, well, I can't do that. What else would you do? And I work with them on that to make sure that do you believe I understand what you have said? Do you believe, that I want to do something about it, what action would be? It's forms of that. Does that make sense?
Yes.
I do not like being told that I'm a loser or I'm insensitive or whatever, but that is not about me. That is a perception of me or whatever. And it may be true. I may have done those things, so I gotta own that. And I can't sit there and say like a movie star apology. Have you ever heard of movie star apology? We're sorry that you misunderstood our artistic endeavor. We didn't mean to offend anybody, but you guys are low life and not very smart. Right? That kind of, we apologize that you didn't get it. That's not an apology. Or the apology that I heard, I know. The apology that sounds like, see, it's all it takes, that says mistakes were made. Nobody's taking responsibility, we're just saying mistakes were made. I didn't make a mistake, but mistakes were made.
That's exactly it. This was a mistake. Really?
Can I interject?
No.
No.
And then my point I wanted to make. Okay, she's talking, and you're up there on your stage talking. Now I'm going to put you guys. Here's the student, and here's the board. Now they're up there in front of everybody, and the students are talking. But what did you just do? You came off the stage and you interacted one-on-one with the students. Why can't they do that instead of having this wall behind the board and everybody out there is talking? Interaction, have some communication one-on-one.
And sometimes the board, any board, is limited by how the board is supposed to function and what it's about. So there are some limits. But
do it outside of that meeting.
But yeah. Which is part of what I have been, I told a couple of people, and this will sound like bragging. I don't want to sound like bragging because if I ever brag, it's because it's a caricature I trot out. Like when people say, oh, Dave, it's good to see you. And it's like, well, it is me. That's not really me. But I have a lot of social capital in this community. I think that's fair. Well, it doesn't get me free meals at restaurants, and it occasionally gets me a free cup of coffee, but that's mostly when my daughter buys, you know what a Freudian slip is, right? It's when you say one thing to meet your mother. That's weird. My wife, I get the free coffee when she buys. So it's not really free. I pay for it later, like this comment here. But I always lose my track. But the board is limited, so my social capital is to take those relationships that I've worked very hard to build over the last 20 plus years and put people in place. I've already told Bella that we're going to make some things happen for her so she can do those things. And I'll coach her if I have to. She got great parents, doesn't need coaching. Obviously, she got 3 great grandparents. Not great grandparents like your great grandparents. I don't know how to tell you about this, but no. But you're wonderful grandparents, obviously. But we're going to open some doors, right? So we use our social capital to do that. And I've got, because of some of the conversations I've had with some of the people, some of those things are going to happen now. Some of those one-on-ones are going to happen. Some of those roundtables, those discussions are going to happen. We have had some interesting voices in the conversation that haven't been helpful to the community. And I'm not the only one doing it, but I feel like I got some pull. So I'm going to do what I can, because otherwise, when I say that the vigilance a lot, you're not going to bump back in love. We're just going to bump back because we're pissed off and tired of it, and we're going to be at each other's throats. It's not what I want. What's happening, right? So we need to listen. We need to some kind of action. If I can't do anything, say, Bella, I see what you say. Right now, that's not possible. But how about this? Well, what about this? Okay. What? And we work together. Now, here's the thing. We've all been through this. At all different levels, we've all been through this. Right? It hasn't been easy. And we're frustrated. That's all natural. But we need to step back. We need to recognize it. Take a deep breath. Do you guys know what an amygdala hijacking is? Okay, your brain, your lizard brain, your fight or flight brain, this is how you know you've had one. When you're in a stressful situation. Now, I was in one, I was at a church board meeting, and they started saying all sorts of stuff about me. I couldn't run, and I couldn't fight. And when my adrenaline got going, I started twitching like I had some kind of neuromuscular disorder. It's so bad, so bad, so bad. I go, you're not going to believe this. That a guy wrote me an email, and he said, I noticed you were twitching. You might want to see a doctor. I said, yeah, I was twitching because you were a moron. Right? So here's what happens. If you've ever been in a discussion with anybody, and you've been hijacked, you know what I'm saying? The conversation, all of a sudden, something happened. And then 20 minutes later, you think, oh, I should have said this, or I should have said that. That's how you know you had the amygdala hijacking. When you recognize your frustration, you say, David, your name. Don't say David. That'd be like weird. Say your name. Stop. Take a deep breath. Remind yourself that you're okay, that you're in a good place. Regroup. If you have to, you can sit there and say, I'm gonna come back in 5 minutes. I want to continue this discussion, but I'm not able to discuss that. You can do that, but you've got to recognize it. Now, I can talk to you about it. I can tell you it is more often than not that I catch myself, but in general, I'm like, oh, not again. Because we're all frustrated. You're a mama bear, you're a grandmama bear, right?
I took this child to school recently. Sat in the parking lot. The whole time she was in school. So I'm going to tell you right now that her mother is the same way.
Oh no, I know that. You two are like twins, actually.
We will sit in that parking lot every day.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm frustrated.
Yeah.
I'm just damn pissed.
Yeah.
That all these kids had to go through that. And that my daughter did.
Yep. Oh yeah, we all are. And there's different stages of grief, and there's different stages in trauma. There are things that they can expect. But this is all normal. It's normal. It's not fun, and we can use that energy and we can move forward on it. Right? Charlie, remember, can't home hard, right? One of the things that we can also do is use empowering language. I work in hospice a lot, and people say, I just can't deal with that anymore. And the only thing I look at is I say, you've already lost a lot of your power and a lot of your choices. You've already, basically, I say, you've been disempowered enough. So why add one more when you say you can't? I would change it to say I won't. That's empowering. That's making a choice. Use empowering language. I won't be talked to that way again. Does that make sense? Still no heresy? Are we okay, Mary? Still no heresy? Okay, good. So, the language you use, one of the things that I would say is that when we don't know how to help, when we feel powerless, one of the things that you're really good at is observing. And when you see a need, you fill it. We all know the people that we know. And when we see a need, what we have to do is pay attention to them and not do it for us. There are people in certain helping professions that are not in to help other people, but to work through their stuff through other people. Have you ever had anybody like that? They're just a mess, but they're in a helping profession. And when you know them, you're like, why the hell are you in a helping profession? You need help first. How did you graduate and have this many issues? Physician, heal thyself. And sometimes you just need somebody on the outside. I need people on the outside that I can talk to and work things through. And you got to be smart. Because sometimes when you ask, and if they offload, you got to write it down yourself and deal with it. Does that make sense so far? So, one of the things when people ask how you're doing, what are some good responses when they say how you're doing? How are you doing? Go ahead so I can.
Well,
Swell? I say splendid. Now the reason I say splendid is because when I'm not, I can say Splenda, and that's artificial, but it's still sweet. True story. I'm Splenda. So if I say, how are you doing? What's a good response? Huh? Splenda? Okay.
I told people to be careful what you ask for.
Okay. That's fair. You want to answer that question?
I'm fine.
Fine?
Fine.
See?
Yeah.
Is that true?
Sometimes.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
How are you?
Getting better.
That's not a bad one. How are you? Good. See, all of these sound good, but oftentimes they're just not true. Raina, whose sister was murdered, she said, I hate that question because I don't know what to say. I hate it. And I say, what do you do? They said, oh, how are you doing? I said, what? And she goes, because people love to talk about themselves. And I was like, that's brilliant. That's too much power for a 16 or 17-year-old to have. But she's not answering. So there's got to be some empowering answers, right? And some of them are good. Be careful what you ask for. Maybe you can sit there and say, I'm still grieving, but thank you so much for caring. Or, I'm not comfortable talking about that right now, but I appreciate you asking. And if you're like me, how many of you have ever had a price check in the checkout line when we had those? You know, we had cashiers and you got a price check? How many of you are like, oh, you know, there's people behind me. Oh, God. Sorry, I didn't. You know, you get all anxious, right? If you're like me. And then there are some people, I swear to God, they got every item as a price checker. They got 100 items, into 15 items or less, and they don't care. We're all different. I'm a crybaby. I'm surprised I haven't cried yet. I am surprised I haven't cried yet. And a crybaby like me looks at a stoic person. Who's really stoic? Oh, Jen, you're stoic. Ruth, you're stoic. I'll use my wife. if she just let it out, she'd feel better. And nobody feels better if she lets it out. So it's not a great example. But then a stoic person looks at a crybaby like me and says, for the love of God, man, pull yourself together. Right? Because it just, we all grieve differently. We all handle stuff differently. But you can find honest responses that also tell where you want to be. Like, do you know that I think the can't and won't thing is won't is really empowering, saying won't as opposed to can't? But because it sounds too forceful, some people just can't do it. They'd rather just suffer silently and use disempowering language because that's where they're more comfortable. I mean, I'm not going to say I know a guy like that. I see him every morning when I shave. But I'm kind of that way. So I got to work really hard to take care of myself, right? So you can say something and say, I don't want to talk about it. I'm too grieving. It's still difficult to talk about. But thank you so much for asking. That's empowering, isn't it? It's been really tough. I'm not sure I want to talk about it. And if they ask more, like it's their goal to get you to talk to them because they need to be validated, just sit there and say, are you deaf? Did you not hear me? Right? Don't do that because that's not a healthy response. That's just stuff you say, like what they say, hey, can you talk to this and she's going through a difficult time. It's like, well, she's in rehab. What did she think was going to happen? That's not a real answer. And I don't do that. That's not a healthy thing, is what I'm saying. You go and talk to them, you listen to them. I think listening, being heard without my agenda, helps too. I can look at Cindy and I can say a whole bunch of stuff that I think Cindy should do, and it's not helpful. Does that make sense? Because it's just, I'm focusing on me. But if I ask Cindy and she doesn't want to talk, I can just honor that. And sometimes just sitting with is enough. Sometimes just sitting there saying, okay, I'll just check back in. Sometimes that's good. So maybe you can Google a lot of stuff. And you can say, you know, that's a question, grieving questions, how to help, best practices, whatever. There's a ton of stuff out there. And usually, as a general rule, I go with anything that's like a .edu or a recognized domain or like American Psychiatric Association or Stanford.edu or something like that. Because believe me, there's a lot of stuff out there that, you know, BillyJoeBob.com and how you get your kids to listen to you kind of stuff, and it's not helpful. You know? And you got to sift through some stuff. You got to find out what works for you. You know, what is maybe in your tone and your voice. You might have to change the way you talk or think about some stuff to be more accommodating to people, because if Cindy's grieving and I'm not, I don't get to say, oh, you'll get over it, you'll be better. How do we know that? Do we know that? Do we know we're going to be okay? We don't know it. And I know you want to go back to the way things go. We got to work through that. That's a natural reaction. But we're not going back there. We're forever changed. And so if somebody's like, I just want to go back to November 29th, I should. Somebody asked me what, you know, my favorite age was. I was working 11. Didn't have to pay any bills. You know, didn't have to work. My needs were taken care of. I got to go out and play. Adulthood is hard. I'm sorry to break it to you, but it's not all fun. So, other questions? What questions? Any questions? Any thoughts? Any corrections? Any disagreements? Disagreement? Oh.
No, but we were talking about things that helped. Not that I was involved in the when I was here, but to like one thing that he said really moved me was he said that the best thing that the community did was that when we went back to school the next year, the community literally physically surrounded the school.
I tried to do that.
First responders. So physically, literally telling the kids, we see you, we have your back, and we will always be here for you.
She was talking about Craig, was it? From Columbine, he was talking about one of the things that was really helpful, and that was that the population of the community surrounded the school. Just to let them know. We had talked about something that, like that, about lining the streets when school was going back in. Didn't really come to fruition, but I think that's great. It's great for a couple of things, because you might notice that we're on different, hello Sharon, you might notice that we're on different, we've taken sides. We've taken sides on the school board, we've taken sides on the prosecutor, we've taken sides on politically, we've taken sides on guns, we've taken sides on a whole bunch of stuff, haven't we? But the one thing that we have in common is each other and the trauma that we suffered. We're all trying to deal with it. That's why we take sides. In general, it's comforting to have a position. But what if we put those aside to be unified as a community? I think that's a great idea, and I think that's something we probably need to start now and get people to do. Yes, young lady in the back.
So I think what was helpful for me was to go to that march. It was downtown, and it wasn't, I didn't march, but to hear the kids. I mean, I don't know how that happens. I think that's part of why this is happening tonight is to start hearing from the kids. And the kids at that march were amazing. Their poise, their desire to ask for what they wanted was so helpful. And I don't know if this is kind of hard to get together regularly, and maybe it's already out there, but an outlet for the kids, podcast, anything where we can tap into it. Because I don't work in this area, I live here, but you know, I can't go to the school and do things. So if there's something, then maybe this is the beginning of the formation of that, but it's just really not a very good difference.
She said that the march was a really good thing to be at. She didn't march, I didn't march, because it was hot. And I know how far it is to that school, and it's uphill both ways. So I said, I'll just have coffee and invite people to come in and tell me how it was. But yeah, there's something to be involved, something to do, and to hear the kids and be reminded just how powerful you guys are. Yes.
So Ruth just touched on the podcast, and I would like to offer anybody that's listening a studio if the kids want to come in. So I work at the television station. If anybody wants to come in and start a podcast, we'll do everything possible to start it for them, get it started, and get it on the air, and get attention for the kids. In fact, I'm thinking about buying a podcast booth so that it would be completely, they would be completely surrounded in their own area.
So, Jeremy, you're on OCTV, we were just talking about that. You'll make space available. If you've got a message and you want to get it out, even if it was the poets of Oxford High, you know, and just record them. That'd be pretty cool. Because if you haven't read the poets of Oxford High, it's painful and beautiful all at the same time because it's expressing stuff. And it's necessary to be heard. It's necessary to recognize it. You know, here's one of the things. I don't mean validating somebody doesn't mean that I agree with you. It means that I have heard you and understood you. in a rough sense. Somebody tells me, oh, my wife has a brain bleed, and they said because of her other underlying health conditions, they can't do anything. So it might be weeks, it could be months. I say, that is so horrible. You must be devastated. If I get it wrong, they'll correct me because I'm working at this thing. How many of you have ever been listened to? I mean, like listened to, heard. Isn't that an awesome experience to be heard? It's awesome. It just takes a little work. But I can validate people, and it really helps in the process. We've done some of that. It must be really freaky. I remember, can I use a story about, she wanted me to talk to you. And she goes, we were talking a little bit, and she goes, this is probably for me. I said, it might be. But it's okay. All right? So, Scott has a fire going out there. I have a little thing. How many of you would like to do a little ritual? You can do it at home, but it might be a helpful ritual for you. All you're going to do, Cindy, thanks for the markers. You'll take a marker, you take whatever one you want. You can draw bird, you can draw a feather, and you can just put the things that you'd like to, oh, yes, you're wondering just how high I am, like the Picasso of stick drawings. Those are birds and a feather. Because with feathers, you know, but the feathers are birds and birds fly, right? Birds, you know, are in the sky, unless you're a penguin and you're a leaf doesn't get eaten by the killer whales. They fly underwater. But see, I want you to maybe put the things that you want to release. The anger or the hostility, because, and I'm not, we got to go through that, right? We got to go through these things. Okay, first of all, grief is like a big circle. And I'll explain it real quickly. You know, you got denial and anger and depression and bargaining, depression, and acceptance. Go through these steps, right? And they would say the steps. But like once you get to acceptance doesn't mean that you might go to denial. And this is what I ran into in hospice. Somebody could make peace with their hospice diagnosis and they work through it. And then the 86-year-old man's 19-year-old granddaughter said she's getting married or she's going to have a baby and it's 9 months and they only got a couple of months to live. So you think they have to work through it again because that's a new thing. You might bounce between them because new stuff comes up. Believe me, when the trials start, new stuff's going to come up. When the school year starts, new stuff's going to come up. When somebody just says that stupid thing, it's going to come up because you haven't met that person before and they just want to say whatever. So we got to go through it. There's no shortcut. So part of this is saying, you know what, I'm tired of carrying my anger. I'm tired of carrying my anxiety. And you can write it on here, and because it's a feather, when you burn it, the energy is transformed, everything's energy, and it rises, and it'll go where it needs to go. But you can also write things that you're afraid of losing, the memories that you don't want to lose, or the things that you're afraid of losing, and like prayers, and they will go someplace. Right? They'll go where they need to go. Or you can write a letter. I think I told you the saddest moment I had was when I stood in front of Hannah St. Juliana's casket. I've never said this before. I think I might have said it one other time. Come on, just get up. Just get up. Come on, little girl. So, you can either take this home with you, but I'd like you to do this. Just take a couple minutes, and if you'd like to, we will place them in there. They will be transformed into energy, and that energy will go where it needs to go. What's that? Bella.
Shirt I wore that day to school, and I took it out to the bonfire pit and I burned it with a torch.
Did you say you burned it with a torch?
Yeah, I gave her my torch.
Do you not have torches? Dang, I wish I'd have thought of that. So she had a sweatshirt or a shirt?
Get one.
So she had a sweatshirt that she had on that day, November 30th. And she'd been holding on to it, and then she got rid of it. She let it go. They did studies that the people that have rituals like that heal more quickly. Some people get over in days, some people take months, some people take years. I talked to one guy. He was a police officer in Eagle Harbor. He was an officer-involved shooting. He shot and killed a guy. He was basically a gunfight with bank robbery, I think it was. I was the first person in 35 years that he talked to about it. He cried. He carried that with him for 35 years. I was honored to be a person who gave him permission to talk about it. Some of us, so if you want to do this, just write it down. Do that now, but if you want to go out to the fire pit or not, fine. You can do this as a private ritual and do it, yes. What's that? Oh, yeah. You want to read a poem or two? Or I got some that I'll read. What do you want?
That's not mine. You.
I'm sorry, I got off. No? Who it?
Oh, I just chose one from the Poets of Oxford, so
Okay.
I'm going to read it. On my phone.
Oh, you two don't have to fight this because we're all here. Bella is one of the moderators for the Poets of Oxford.
Yeah.
Oxford High. It's Instagram. Is it Facebook too?
No.
Okay, it's just Instagram.
Yeah.
All right. So here's some poems. Who's going to read it?
Yes, I am.
You want to come up here just so we can get a better chance of hearing everything?
It was just one that, I mean, like you said, the Instagram, they're all so beautiful, written and sad, but nice. So I just picked that one out, and I thought that was a really nice one.
There are pretty better ones, I would say. What's the second one?
Nice and loud, like you're yelling at your mom and dad.
Okay. I want to cry. I feel like I need to, but it won't come out. I have all these emotions I want to let go of, but I don't know how. I feel embarrassed to show struggle. I feel embarrassed to show weakness. I want to scream. I want to yell at the top of my lungs, and not be concerned about what will happen after. I have all these emotions in lava like a volcano, and it won't explode. I want to cry for hours, cry for days. I wanted to since the beginning of this pain, but I've just been buried my emotions, and I haven't let them out. And now I want to let them out, and they won't come out. I want to cry and feel this pain, have it taken off me and gone.
Here, I saw some other pages. Do you have another one?
No,
Or is that it?
that was it. Yeah.
I need my wife's glasses. Oh, I thought my phone was going bad. It's actually words. Everyone is angry at admin. Admin isn't listening to me, to you, to us, to the student body, to the parents, to the community, to the world. Admin won't listen. Why? Admin takes one look and goes, yellow hearts, that'll do it. No, it won't. Justice for Hannah. Justice for Tate. Justice for Madison. Justice for Justin. Justice for Oxford students and families. What admin doesn't understand is that justice for all of the people I have listed doesn't just come from a life sentence for all the Crumleys. Justice needs to come from admin. We wouldn't be here if they hadn't been more thorough. We wouldn't be here if they hadn't taken down our much loved victims' memorials. We wouldn't be here if admin had just listened. Admin won't listen. They need to listen. Please help us make them listen. I'm begging you. Admin must take responsibility for all of this. Admin must. That's a real feeling, isn't it? Memorial. I want a memorial. I want future generations to remember them. I want a memorial. I want to see Madison make more artwork. I want her artwork to be in museums and shared with the world. I want a memorial. I want to talk to it and imagine talking to them again. I want a memorial. I want to see Tate's joy light up a room. I want a football with it, a memory of his love of sports, but his care for others. I want a memorial. I want a permanent memorial somewhere in the building to remember them. I want a memorial. I want to hear Justin's jokes again. I want his passion and hope to be shared with others. I want a memorial. I want a memorial for the ones who can't share their side of the story from heaven. I want a memorial. I want to see Hannah's smile. I want to have all the tulips for her. I want a memorial because a memorial isn't a trigger. A memorial brings joy to their life. I want a memorial to remember their memories. I want a memorial with pictures. I want a memorial with flowers. I want a memorial with their hobbies. I want a memorial. I need a memorial. I didn't know. He was in my first hour, and I didn't know. He was in the halls I walked, and I didn't know. I didn't know the destruction would happen that day. I didn't know the fear I would have on Tuesdays. I didn't know the anxiety I would have over walking into the school. I wanted to go back to December and call my worried son, say everything will be all right. But I don't know what tomorrow will bring. I don't know anything. I didn't know, and I don't know. You can write a poem. You can write a word. I think we need to have more poems, don't we? See, that's a real emotion. And we can't just sit there and tell it's okay. We got to sit there and say, man, that sounds like you're devastated, like you're hurt, like I'm so sorry. I'm sorry you were treated, whatever. But just be present and say that is really beautiful. You have one you want to read?
That's great.
Does it have big words on it?
No, I can see the end up.
Okay.
Take a good time.
We should be fine. They say we should be fine, that we should be done grieving and move on. They say we should be fine. Well, I hate to break it to you, but you weren't there. You don't have any control over my trauma. They say we should go back to school. They say we should be done processing and move on. They say we should be fine. Well, I hate to break it to you. Oh, wait, I'm glad to tell you, you can't control my trauma and how that day affects me because it will always be a part of me. And school shouldn't be required, but is. I feel like I can't get to the next one. Oh, is it just a screenshot instead of another one? They say because the world has moved, you should. They say that you should be done mourning and to move on. They say we should be fine. Well, I'm going to inform you I'm not fine. My trauma is still there no matter what you say. The world may have moved on, but Oxford hasn't. Some of Oxford may have moved on, but the high schoolers haven't. Some of the Oxford high schools may have moved on, but I haven't moved on. This is good stuff. This is the stuff. I don't think there's a Psalm, it's Psalm 88. I'm not going to read it, but it talks about talking about God, where was God and why has God failed, and it's horrifying. And it's still in the Bible. And it ends with, you've taken from me family and friend, darkness is my closest friend. And when I read it to people that are dying or sick or infirm, they say, that's me. Where was God? I was walking with a young guy, R.J. Grunwald. He's a pastor, and we were praying in the hallways before it opened up. He said, it's really hard to pray for a God to bless the school when you wonder where he was at the shooting. I said, yeah. It's a great question. It's a great question. You got to be okay with the question. Some people aren't okay with that. And I don't know what to say to them, except that I get it. I got that question. So these poems can give you an insight into what needs to be done and how we need to help. It was cool just listening to them, wasn't it? There'll be more of these. We'll figure out a way. But you got seeds now. So let's go plant them. So have you written down your stuff? Have you written your things? Who wants to go out to the burn pile? Okay. Go. So it's right out back here. You guys want to come? Well, if you want to do it, you're going to have to come outside, because burning it inside, it would be illegal.
We're done.
The slobbery dog. She's got really soft too, though. No offense. Slow.
Move that over.
Wow, you are one brave hombre. Holy cow.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Don't worry.
You're right, Will.
She's not going to get hurt.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
And then,
Right. See? Yeah, right. The bottom pools. Oh, this is right. Anybody else? You guys coming?
fire.
I get t-shirt now. I want a long sleeve, I want a tank top, I want a buddy.
Every color.
Anybody else? So one of the things that I'd ask you to do is to just envision those going where you'd like them to go also. Make it a visual part. Make it real. Start making that real. When you see it, it helps. It helps with that feeling inside, visualizing it. So thank you for being here. I hope it was helpful. We've got the seeds that we need to make a difference, and we're going to keep going. Okay? Thank you again.
Thank you so much.
Wonderful, wonderful night.